Hi, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about if you have fluxed your emotions lately. If you're like most people, your age or older, you probably have, and that's perfectly normal. Here we have two guys who are on a seesaw, and obviously that represents the ups and downs of our own emotions as we go through lifespan. Now, today we're going to be talking specifically about adolescence. And that is defined as the transition from childhood to adulthood. But adolescence is accompanied for part of it with puberty, which is the beginning of one's reproductive ability. So adolescence and puberty, while they are intertwined, adolescence covers a period of one's life that's much longer than just puberty itself. Both of these, adolescence and puberty, include changes that are physical, emotional, and social. So we want to kind of dive in here. Awkward is a word that comes up probably most often when we talk about these issues with adolescence and puberty and growing up. There are a couple things that we want to know, though. It doesn't have to be awkward. Puberty is triggered by hormones that kick in and tell the body when to start developing for reproductive ability. We'll talk about it later, but that happens at a different time for every person depending on who you are. In girls, this includes ovulation, which is releasing an egg, and in boys, it's the production of sperm. So those are kind of the marking points where puberty is defined. Both sexes experience an increase in body hair, the function of sweat glands, which mean you sweat a lot more and it stinks, and oil glands, which are our old friend acne. So deodorant, really important during this time and beyond. And also understanding that our hormones are dropping. So we have now everybody experiences these changes in their body. It does seem awkward, but understand that everybody on the planet who is an adult has experienced adolescence and gone through it. And the experiences that you gain from it can be very, very important in shaping who you become as an adult and as you move through your life as potentially a parent and a role model for your children and their friends. So adolescence a lot of times is referred to as a roller coaster, right? So we know that moving from childhood to adulthood naturally has its own bumps, its own rises and falls. Socially, those challenges can be very difficult. The pressures that we feel as a teenager can really affect our ups and downs and our moods, which affect oftentimes our outcomes and how we communicate with others and how approachable we are and how comfortable we feel approaching others. So here we got my little guy. He's I imagine you kind of feel this way maybe watching this, blah, and then you get nervous sometimes, and then you feel sick sometimes, and then you have a great time sometimes, and then other times you're crying, and then you're happy, and then you're crying and happy at the same time. So there's all kinds of things that we feel, and managing those emotions is a real challenge. So all that's the stuff that happens to us, the hormones, the changes, different perceptions people have of us as we're growing up. All that changes. But what can you do? What can we do during this time? Some important things to think about doing is developing your core identity and personality style. You get to play with this a little bit when you're a teenager. You get to try out different styles. Some people put themselves out there and get really extroverted in their approach to other people. And then maybe they draw back a little bit and they become a little more introverted and they see where in that spectrum they fall. And you might have noticed some of your own friends doing that from time to time. Function successfully at school and home. So one thing in your power to do is work hard at school and be a good teammate in the house at home. Doing those things can certainly help your outcome in terms of how smooth communication is with your families and your friends, your teachers, and the path you set forward for yourself for your future. Find enjoyment and a sense of purpose. So during this time, you're bigger. You get to explore more things that could be interesting to you. So whether that's sports or fishing like this guy, or if it's reading, writing, or computer programming, anything that you're interested in and find enjoyment in, you want to do that and really kind of staple that to your identity. And one of the ways that you can be a really effective adult. Demonstrate respect for yourself and for others. If you get into a pattern of demonstrating respect, and that's intentional respect to other people, going out of your way to be respectful, that goes a really, really long way into adulthood. It can affect everything from relationships to job opportunities to bringing up your own children, things like that. So building a life of respect for yourself, maintaining standards for yourself, and with relationship with other people is really, really important. Express in healthy ways your feelings and thoughts. So using I statements, not being impulsive in how we talk to other people. Just because we're feeling kind of upset at one point doesn't mean that we can go off screaming at somebody. Saying I think, I feel, I believe. These are ways that we start sentences when we feel emotion kind of welling up inside of us, whether it's really happy emotion, really sad emotion, angry, fearful, all those things. We communicate better when we say, I feel this, I think I'm feeling this because, something like that. So using I statements and expressing our feelings and thoughts by recognizing our emotions, not letting those emotions spill out in our communication. All right, and then accepting responsibility for our actions. That's something that becomes more and more important that we do ourselves, self-management of that, rather than having others do it. We can think of a million times. I know a million times when I was a kid, and I'd have a teacher come over and say, hey, quit doing that, or stop doing this, and then you'd always turn around and say, okay, sorry, and then move on. And that was someone outside of me who was telling me to stop doing something and then teaching me how to say, I'm sorry. As you get older, you don't have that outward person who's necessarily going to tell you how to handle the situation. You have to handle it yourself by apologizing and then moving on, or doing what's necessary to right the wrong or right the situation. So responsibility for actions. There's some interesting little points here toward the end of this. First of all, it is true teenagers experience wider mood swings than adults. That is true. Adults over time learn to recognize what's going to affect their mood. And so in that experience, adults learn how to kind of buffer those moods. Teens, understandably, haven't had as much experience with that. So when something happens to a teen, the response is a little bit bigger than it is in an adult who has experience. Maybe they've experienced that 3 or 4 times. An example is a breakup, right? An emotional breakup, relationship breakup. While that may not have happened so many times for a teenager, it has happened for adults. So when those things happen for adults, the response to them is different each time. And sometimes we would call it a little muted, even though the feelings can be the same. The emotion is the same. So with experience comes less of a swing in emotion. Not that they're not there, but less of a swing. Your moods are more likely to depend on whom you spend your time with. That's just true. If you're spending your time with people who are go-getters, really upbeat, positive talkers, positive thinkers, that's going to cause you to be more positive. It's a team atmosphere. We're very social beings as human beings, and so we kind of mimic our surroundings, and that's what we carry with us. So you'll notice that. Factors like stress that you're feeling and experiencing are real. Those are things that influence our mood. So are things like being in love. You can be in love. I can be in love with a Cinnabon. I can be in love with a person. I can be in love, and that emotion is very, very strong. And in teenagers and adults, but teenagers with less experience than adults, that can affect our feelings, our emotions, and our response to them in bigger ways. So managing that is what we want to think about. Research shows that teens use less of the area of the brain involved in empathy as they grow and are more likely to use the part of the brain involved in predicting the future. This is important because as you start to look forward in time, not just in the present moment, but forward in time, that's important for people to do because they can start planning their life out ahead of them. Not that you have to plan it perfectly, but thinking forward makes us make decisions now that are going to influence where we are in the future. So that's really good for teens to be able to do, adolescents, but it also means that the capacity for them to understand or read their own emotions and the emotions of others is a little bit low. So as we say, see a friend who flies off the handle because they got a bad grade or something, that isn't always perceived as a way that we can understand why they're coming out with that emotion. So oftentimes an adolescent, some adults, will see that reaction and not recognize it for what it is. They'll say, oh, that person's being mean to me. In reality, that person is reacting to their grade, and that grade has affected what they spilled out. So it's important that we're aware of this, but understand that it's also an important shift in our brain attention and chemistry. Okay, so understand, please, that strong emotions are normal. Everybody feels strong emotions. Everybody from a newborn baby to a 103-year-old person have strong emotions. It's how we deal with those emotions that's very different at all the stages of our life. So try to be thoughtful rather than impulsive and emotional about decisions. Try your best to eat healthy food and exercise. Food is like medicine. If you eat good food for your body, you get a good outcome for your body. If you eat bad food, it's a bad outcome. So what you put in your body is important. Exercise, very important. We know the benefits of exercise, not just in physical health, but also mental health. The hormones that exercise naturally drops into our bloodstream, keep us calm. They have calming elements to them. And they also keep us focused, give us time and perspective in movement that kind of does our body really good and our mind good. And use resources like parents, teachers, counselors that you can ask for help in kind of getting through experiences. If you have that meaningful, actionable adult relationship with someone who's older than you, who's experienced things that you trust and you're willing to talk to and listen to, that's a kind of person that can have a big impact on who you become because they're going to help shape how you decide to encounter the world. So thanks for listening to this presentation, and it'll be stored for you to access all week and really all year. So have a great day. Thanks for listening.